So pairs of angles, we're going to talk about angles and their relationships with each other and put names to them, okay? So on the first one, I'm here on that first box. Your guys' is outlined a little bit better. It says when two lines intersect. What does intersect mean? When they cross, right? If I have my arms like this, where's the intersection at? In the middle, okay? So they form two pairs of opposite angles. What does opposite mean? Flip versions were used too. What does opposite mean other than numbers? Inverted, so they're across from each other, opposite angles, okay? And they're called vertical angles. Everyone underline vertical angles. And what we know about those vertical angles is that they are congruent. So underline vertical angles, circle congruent. What does congruent mean? The same. Congruent is the exact same definition as equal. Okay, but congruent is used in geometry instead of equal. Okay, so congruent means equal. So vertical angles are congruent to each other. If I look at this diagram right here. So looking at vertical angles here, this diagram, if I'm looking at angle 1, where's my intersection at? In the middle, right? Where those two lines cross. What angle is opposite of angle 1? 2. Those two angles are vertical angles. Okay? So if I'm looking at 4, what is my vertical angle to 4? 3. Okay? Are 1 and 3 vertical angles?
No.
No, why not?
They're
They're next to each other. They're horizontal. Okay? We want vertical. Okay? Is there any other pair of vertical angles, or are those the only two? Those are the only two, right? And what did it tell us about their measure? What do we know about their measure? They're congruent. They're the same. You're going to see these symbols a lot. Okay? Those mean congruent. Those are congruent markings. Okay? Why do you think 1 and 2 have 1 marking and 3 and 4 have 2 markings?
Because they're bigger numbers.
What? It's to keep them separate, okay? If I only put 1 line on all of those, that would mean they're all congruent. But is that true?
No.
No. Okay? So that's why they have 2 separate markings. If I had a third angle, how many markings do you think it would have?
8.
3, right? Good. Okay? Looking at that next section, it says 2 angles that have the same vertex. What does vertex mean?
The center starting.
It's where they're at, right? Where's the vertex right here? It's the intersection, right? Where's the vertex if I have an angle that looks like this? The top? Yes. Okay? So it has a vertex between them and they share a common side. So underline, those are called adjacent angles. Adjacent angles. Adjacent means next to or connected. Okay? Adjacent angles right here. Are 5 and 6 adjacent to each other? How do you know? They share that line right on the inside. They share that line. Okay? They make up 1 angle. Those 2 separate angles make up 1 angle right next to each other. Those are adjacent. Okay? So, let me ask you this. If I compare vertical angles and adjacent angles, can they be the same? Can I have vertical and adjacent angles? Let's talk about it. Vertical angles, looking at vertical angle 1 and 2. Are those adjacent to each other? No. Why not?
Because they're not sharing the wall.
They're not sharing a wall. Okay? They are not right next to each other. Looking at my top diagram up here, give me an example of adjacent angles. Raise your hand. Give me an example. 2 and 3. What else?
4 and 8. 2.
4 and 2.
1 and 1.
1 and 3. There's a bunch all the way around. Okay? But do you understand that vertical angles cannot be the same as adjacent angles? It's either going to be vertical or adjacent. Okay? Questions with vertical and adjacent angles? Okay, let's talk about our next one. Now we're going to get into some angles. So if the sum, what does sum mean? What operation? Addition. Put an addition sign above sum. Make sure you're writing down everything I write down. Addition sign against or above sum So the sum of the measures of the two angles is 90. Circle 90. 90 degrees. Why is it in degrees?
Because
Because it's an angle, right? Angles are measured in degrees. And then it says the angles are complementary angles. Underline complementary angles. So if I tell you, hey, those two angles are complementary, you're going to think right away 90 degrees. Okay? What is in this diagram, what tells me that it's 90 degrees?
the square.
That square, okay? That square is going to be your hint or giveaway to complementary. Okay? So, if I see that box, I know 90 degrees, and that's complementary. Okay? If I threw in that angle 8 was 35 degrees, how could I find angle 7?
Look at it. It's another 35.
Right. Because what do we know about that whole angle? It's 90. What's the vocab term?
Complementary.
Complementary. 90 and complementary. We know that whole thing equals 90. So, Layla, what did you say to find the other angle? Subtract from 90. Take 90 minus 35. What does that give us? 55. So that is my angle 7. Okay? How can you check if you got it right? Right. What should these two add up to? 90, right? So, what is the measure of a complementary angle? 90. What's the measure of a complementary angle?
90.
Last one we got to talk about. That bottom one. If the sum, what does sum mean? Add. If the sum of the measure of the two angles is 180, circle it. 180 degrees. The angles are called underline supplementary angles. Okay? Similar to 90 and complementary, just with 180 degrees. Looking for a straight line. Sometimes they have them connected, sometimes they have them split up a little bit. Okay? But 9 and 10 are supplementary because they have that straight line underneath that connects them. Okay? What else do I know about 9 and 10? What else could they be?
They could be adjacent
They could be adjacent. Why?
because they're next to each other.
Because they're next to each other. Okay? What is the measure of supplementary angles? 180. Okay, so if I said angle 10 was 20 degrees, how could I find measure of angle 9? Take 180 minus 20. What does that give me? 160. So that would be our angle 9. How could I check if I did that correctly? Add them because they should add up to what? 180. Okay? Questions with those?
No. Wait.
Which 3 of those 4 go together? Or which one cannot compare to any of those? Vertical. Why not? Because they have to be opposite across, okay? All the other 3 are what?
Adjacent.
Next to each other, adjacent, okay?